Hello, I am Josh Kulagowski, and I will be analyzing the war between Russia and Ukraine. On February 24th, 2022, Russia launched a full-scale military invasion of Ukraine, escalating tensions that have been developing for decades. The conflict has become one of the most significant geopolitical crises in Europe since World War II. Since the conflict has begun, there have been over 1 million casualties. More so than just the loss of life, this conflict has affected the political, economic, and international security landscape of the world. The first lens in which we will be viewing this conflict is through realism versus liberalism. Realism can best show the point of view of Russia. Russia has acted in their own self-interest by invading Ukraine. President Putin of Russia believed that that would be the best case for Russia. Russia is acting relatively alone and does not care about the effects of the rest of the world. The point of view of Ukraine can best be explained through liberalism. Ukraine does not act alone. NATO, a intergovernmental organization, has come to Ukraine's defense. Ukraine has been cooperating with NATO for a little while to Putin and Russia's detriment. This has, in turn, only turned up the conflict. The next lens in which we will be viewing this conflict is through the levels of analysis. Looking at this conflict through the state level, we see Russia acting in their own self-interest. More than anything else, they are deciding to act alone. Ukraine, on the other hand, of course, also acting in their own self-interest, believes that it is best to try to look outwardly for help. And this brings us to the interstate level. NATO is a large actor in this conflict as well. NATO has decided they are going to be at Ukraine's aid in military aid and through just general aid for the Ukrainian people. The United Nations has also been a part of this conflict, acting as sort of a judge in the conflict. They have decided Russia being the aggressor, they should be sanctioned by other sort of governing bodies. One of these bodies being the European Union. They have put sanctions on Russia as sort of a punishment for Russia's actions. Next, we will look at this war through international law and human rights. We see the sovereignty of Ukraine being questioned by Russia as Russia decided to invade Ukraine's borders. The United Nations, being an arbiter of international law, has determined that this is a large violation by Russia. We see human rights being violated as there are many civilian casualties. Of course, this is a violation because humans have a right to live peacefully. Another way in which human rights are violated are many refugees are created by this war. When there is a lot of territory being bombed, it is unsafe for people to live there, and they are sort of forced out of their homes and must leave to find safety. Another reason human rights have been violated are war crime investigations have been going on by the United Nations investigating both sides of the conflict. Another way in which we can analyze the Russian invasion of Ukraine is through the lens of international context. This conflict reflects broader geopolitical tensions between Russia and Western powers, particularly NATO and the United States. Many NATO countries have provided military and financial aid to Ukraine, which has certainly shaped the way the war has gone. Additionally, countries like China have taken a more neutral stance, highlighting the divisions in the global political system. Although China has relatively sat on the sidelines as part of the war, they have benefited from certain sanctions. While the rest of the world, in large part, has sanctioned Russian oil, China has been able to benefit by importing cheap Russian oil into China. These international dynamics are able to demonstrate how conflicts are influenced not only directly by the countries involved, but are also showing the broader international environment as a whole. Next, we will look at how this conflict has escalated over time. Now, these two states have had many territorial disputes, essentially since they became sovereign nations in 1991 after the collapse of the Soviet Union. One of these large disputes was over the territory of Crimea. It was a part of Ukraine, and in 2014, Russia decided to invade and annex the area. Next, we can look at this conflict through the lens of conflict theory. Military alliances have been a large part of how this conflict has escalated. NATO has been warming up to Ukraine and vice versa, and Russia has been discomforted by this. The discomfort of Russia has led to Ukraine feeling unsafe and wary for war, which has brought them even closer to NATO, and that has sort of spiraled and really put fire on this conflict, increasing it. The final lens in which we will be viewing this conflict is through international trade. There have been many sanctions placed on Russia. The largest states that have placed these sanctions are the United States and the Intergovernmental Organization of the European Union. One of the large sanctions that have been placed on Russia is the freezing of their central banks. This has in turn affected their internal economy. Another large sanction that has affected the whole world is the sanction on Russian oil exports. This has disrupted the world energy markets. Since oil is necessary for the transportation of goods, the price of oil going up affects the price of just about every good. Another way in which international trade has been affected by this war is the reduced grain exports of the Ukraine. Ukraine has been a large exporter of the world's food supply. Because of rich Ukrainian farmland being bombed by Russia, you're not able to make many food exports, and in turn it has affected the world's food supply. The nations that are unfortunately affected the most by this are the poorest of the poor. In conclusion, there are numerous lenses in which we can view this conflict and all other conflicts. There are numerous ways in which the world is affected by the actions of individuals and states. We can use political science to anticipate the future actions and scenarios and find the best way to come to a conclusion for each conflict.